I said today, not ever, not historical. Don't bring up historical.
Even though we have historical examples of it happening, and you've already
Don't bring up historical.
Even
I said
you're gonna let me finish my sentence. Even though,
but you don't
even you're going to let me finish my sentence.
Don't misattribute my statements.
I'll mute you if I have to.
Stating and what the question you didn't answer, if you're gonna get up to me for not answering questions, do you believe that given the circumstances where the college has to choose between a white male that has a 2.8 GPA and a black male that has a 2.8 GPA, which one would be more likely to get in? Which one?
I guess I would assume if the specific thing that was happening here was affirmative action placement, then I would imagine it would probably be, because of the fact that we've already confined it to a specifically affirmative action placement, I would imagine it would probably be a black male, because black males are underrepresented in colleges. Yeah.
Well, you would be correct. It would be the black male that would have the higher chance of getting into a college with a 2.8 GPA than the white male getting into a college with a 2.8 GPA. There's a higher statistical probability that the black male will get in with a 2.8 GPA than the white male.
You got me. All right, so bringing it home for the rest of this conversation really quickly, I think the thing that CRT, let's get to a broader conversation, because that was a complete tangent that didn't go anywhere.
But it all goes back to something. It all goes back to CRT recognizes it's a systemic nature of racism that bears primary responsibility for reproducing racial inequality.
I don't know why
it all goes back to that.
I don't know why you insist on just over talking all the time, but it's fine. I might interrupt and interject, but you do insist on over talking, but it's fine. I do,
because I've been interrupted and interjected so much that I feel like I need to over talk. Okay. It's all good.
I got you. That's yeah. Even though my interjections are typically to get you to continue going the right path, they're typically brief, but it's fine. Anyway, so CRT is the intention of CRT is to study how law intersects with that law is not like objective, in the sense that there are specific things that it can intersect with that can affect it. The link that I gave you earlier regarding from the American Bar Association, it goes into some of the specifics about I'm trying to find the sentence really quick. It was where was developed, right? And I think here it is. Can you go down to the place where it says CRT grew from critical legal studies? You can just probably type in CLS. Type in CLS.
I see it. I got it.
Okay. Can you read that for me really quickly?
CRT grew from critical legal studies, which argued the law was not objective or apolitical. CLS was a significant departure from earlier conceptions of the law as objective, neutral, principled, and disassociated from social or political considerations.
Stop there. Wait. Stop right there. Do you agree with that? He has to reread it because he's not actually reading and listening. He's literally just reading the words but not understanding.
Sorry, I'm reading over it and trying to actually get an understanding before I answer your questions. So I apologize for the long delay.
Take your time. Take your time.
No, I think that law is political. I think that all law is political at a certain point in time. I don't believe that law is apolitical. No. I don't believe that it's absent of social or political considerations.
Okay. So, let's go ahead and read the next sentence, okay? Like proponents of CLS, critical race theories recognize that the law could be complicit in maintaining an unjust social order. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with it in a socioeconomic stance, yes.
Do you think that the law could be used on specifically a race stance?
Not today, no. I believe it could be used as a socioeconomic stance. I do not believe it could be used on a race stance.
Okay, so what about laws that were drafted, that were struck down by the Supreme Court, that created racist voting laws in North Carolina that though they didn't say the word race, they were literally targeted with the intention of getting rid of or negatively impacting the black vote? Are you familiar with that law? Are you familiar with that?
Not familiar. I'm not familiar with that law. No, I'm not. I didn't study up on that. What I did study up on law-wise was what I thought might have came up was the Texas law on banning CRT from schools. I didn't think we'd go into that. So I apologize for not studying up on that.
No, so my point being, like, okay, so do you understand that somebody can create a law in today, and they did. They created a law that literally targeted black vote specifically. Supreme Court struck it down and said that they literally asked for race-based voting data, and then using that data, created a law that targeted the black vote with surgical precision, even though it never mentioned the word race. It just targeted the things specifically aimed at black people.
And
Now,
it didn't go through?
the law did go through, and then it was eventually overturned by the Supreme Court. Now,
So it didn't go through. The court turned it.
it did
The
go.
court overturned it.
It did go through. I don't know if you understand how laws work. It did go through, and then it was eventually overturned. Meaning, to overturn something means that it did go through. It was overturned by the Supreme Court.
So it was never put into practice.
Yeah, I don't think you understand what overturn
Just
means.
because an abortion law is put through the House and the Senate doesn't mean it's going to pass the Supreme Court. So it was never put into practice. This law was never practiced, which is why I'm saying today, right, that the law could be complicit in maintaining an unjust social order. I believe that the courts are an important part of making sure that laws do not be complicit in maintaining an unjust social order. And again, like I said, I think this all goes back to socioeconomics. I don't think this goes back to race. And like I said, this law that you're talking about, since you didn't want to specifically answer my question, I'm going to assume that it was never put into practice. I'm assuming the court struck it down prior to it actually going into practice. And the courts are actually a part of the lawmaking system, because the laws can actually be tested and tried through the courts, and the courts can decide whether or not that's actual legal law or not. So today, I don't believe that. No.
Okay, so the fact that the law was passed and it had to be overturned by the Supreme Court means that laws can be used to target specific races. This is a non-point. I'm not going to get stuck on here. If you choose to continue to live in a world in which you genuinely believe that laws cannot ever be used, even though we have historic examples of it happening.
I said today, not ever, not historical. Don't bring up historical.
Even though we have historical examples of it happening, and you've already
Don't bring up historical.
Even,
I said
you're
today.
gonna let me finish my sentence. Even though,
Well, you don't
even
misattribute my statements.
you're going to let me finish my sentence.
Don't misattribute my statements.
I'll mute you if I have to.
Hold on. Just like I gave you some time, Sprout, let me give it Fanatiq time, and then you can respond. If he's misattributed something, then you can get time to respond to that. But Fanatiq.
I wasn't you putting words in his mouth. I wasn't quoting him in any way, shape, or form. I was making my own statement. Even though we're very well aware that historically laws have been used in order to maintain unjust social order. So we obviously recognize that before Brown versus Board of Education happened, we already had separate but equal, which had been upheld by the Supreme Court. We also recognize that in 1986 that they needed to create a sentencing act specifically to combat the fact that there is such insane racial disparate outcomes in our legal system because of judicial discretion. So, in the same sense, we recognize now that there are all sorts of different states that have passed various laws aimed at targeting specific ways that minorities vote. So, to pretend as if these things can't be used to maintain unjust social order is just absolutely ridiculous. He already conceded that there were historic systemic racism laws that affected things now, and that the current laws as they stand now will continue to maintain these disparate outcomes. So then by that definition, the laws passed now that will be maintaining these disparate outcomes another word for that would be unjust social order. Then those laws will still perpetuate these outcomes. So clearly he already agreed with it. He just wants to fight at every little sentence to beleaguer the conversation, to not get to the overall point that critical race theory is specifically trying to help people to understand how laws affect all of us in our living circumstances, and to recognize that it's not by personal choice that that disparate outcomes are created, and that Yeah, that's really what he's trying to avoid. But he's just beleaguering the conversation. We can't even get into directly the education system because we've gotten hamstrung at literally every tenet of just the basic tenets of what critical race theory is.
Go ahead, Sprout.
Okay. So I love how I said not today, and we're bringing up historical examples. I said not today, and we were proven that it wasn't today. The Supreme Court broke down the law. That was the law that you brought up, that you wanted to say, hey, this is the point. This is the point, guys. This is where I'm going to prove it with this law. But the Supreme Court struck it down. So now that we're going to talk about the Supreme Court striking it down, the Supreme Court is vital to the lawmaking process because it determines whether laws are actually legal or not with one, Supreme Court precedents, and two, with the Constitution. Now, when we talk about this, we can look a very close, almost a one-to-one, abortion, right? When we talk about abortion, the states make laws all the time. It goes before the court, and the court knocks them down before they can ever actually be put into practice. That you see this again and again and again. This isn't a one-off. The Supreme Court is very vital to our lawmaking system. Now, moving forward from that, right? The education system, I said we weren't doing enough, right? I said we weren't doing enough for the education system. That is what I said. So let's be very clear on what I said about the education system, that we weren't doing enough to assist these schools in the education system. That is what I said, regardless of whether or not that's what you heard.
Okay, so yeah, I obviously recognize, with like Plessy versus Ferguson and other things, that the Supreme Court can absolutely uphold racist laws. Number one, we also recognize that like they're still human; they can still make mistakes. There is a long process that's involved in which states can uphold certain laws, and we have to wait until that thing runs up the appellate courts until it eventually gets appellate courts until it gets to the Supreme Court. So the idea that the Supreme Court, yes, the Supreme Court is supposed to be the thing that protects us from racism, but it doesn't always. And sometimes they can get things wrong, as we have obviously witnessed historically. So this idea to be able to say that laws just can't be used in order to uphold like social injustice or race or unjust social order is just crazy. So anyway, with that being said, the CRT, hold on, Sprouticus, are you aware that less than 8% of high school seniors can identify the slavery as a central cause of the Civil War?
No, I didn't know. Less than 8%. No, I didn't know that.
Okay. Are you aware that Texas just passed new laws? The Texas Senate just passed a law that literally restricts and removes the teachings or the "I Have a Dream" speech from Martin Luther King.
Please read which part of the Texas law. I have the Texas law in front of me. Please read which part of the Texas law, word for word. It says that you cannot do that. You cannot say the "I Have a Dream" speech. Please read that.
It was SB3. I can find it.
I could link you the Texas law. This is the
Let me find
legal
it. One
standing.
second. Let me see. I'm sorry.
There's the link.
Wait.
House Bill 4093.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Wait. No. This was a Senate bill. I think it was SB3.
It was SB3. Okay, I'm looking at the House bill, so
Yeah.
we can go to the Senate bill. Texas SB3. Got it. Let's
pull that
see.
up myself.
Text.
Wait, you realize that they were literally questioning him on the floor, and the senator was literally responding yes to all of those, right?
I didn't watch that. I don't live in Texas. I was looking at the law.
I got you. I didn't read the entire thing, so I don't know exactly where it's, but probably should be in secondary curriculum. Let's see. I don't know. This is a really
do Yeah, do we want to maybe
Okay, yeah, we'll move because I didn't come prepared with that whole document, knowing exactly where like the entire law was. I mean, there
Okay,
was
well,
just a questioning from the
I can
senator.
read you the part that you're probably referring to.
No, because
Teach, instructor, train. So,
you're reading a
I'm
different
sorry.
bill. You said you were aware of a
No,
different bill.
this is the Senate bill. This is Senate Bill 3. I can link that as well.
I got it. I'm looking at it right now. But it's a really
Okay, so
humongous bill with all of these subtexts. Do you know
so
where exactly where
this
the text that I'm talking about is?
yes.
so
So I
so
can address it
Sprout,
So
more
this
efficiently.
is
Sprout,
yes.
read that part. Just
Okay,
read it.
so it goes on to say a teacher, administrator, or other employee of a state agency, school district, open enrollment charter school may not may not teach, instruct, or train any administrator, teacher, or staff member of a state agency, school district, or open enrollment charter school to adopt. Now I'm gonna skip quite a bit to get to where I think you're talking about. Um, with respect, to where you're talking about is an individual, by the virtue of the individual's race or sex, bears responsibility for the actions committed in the past by the members of the same race or sex. Individuals should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress in the account of an individual's race or sex. Meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic or racist or sexist or were created by members of a particular race to oppress members of another race. The advent of slavery in the territory that is now the United States constituted the true founding of the United States, or that with the respect to their relationship to American values, slavery and racism are anything other than deviations from, betrayals of, or failures to live up to the authentic founding principles of the United States, which include liberty, equality, and require an understanding of the 1619 Project. They can't
That's
teach
not the
any of
part that
that.
I'm talking about.
Okay, well,
But I got it.
I'd be
You
interested.
insisted on
Yeah.
reading it, but that's fine. Okay, now that we got past that. So now that so my point being, obviously, I wish I knew exactly where that was. I mean, the senator did agree to that when he was being challenged on it. But yeah, so I, let's go to something we can prove. You're
Give me
aware.
1 second. Give me
Okay.
1 second. Um, do you know? And I'm asking you, have it streamer to streamer, right? Do you know of a chatter named by the name of Quill Up?
No,
Okay, we're in my channel. My mods are telling me we're seeming to have issues with people coming over, to our chat and coming over and saying slurs and stuff like that. So,
I don't know
I
them.
just
Nobody from my
okay.
chat. No one I know. None of my friends would do that. They normally stay in my chat, and they wouldn't go into your stream and say immature stuff. They're just gonna make talk. No, they wouldn't do that.
Okay, all right. I was just asking streamer to streamer. I
I got you.
wanted to make sure.
Literally never heard that name a day in my life.
Okay, all
And
right.
I
We
wouldn't endorse
continue.
anything
I
like that
apologize.
anyway. It's all good. Yeah, so here's an example. Book publishing giant McGraw Hill is saying it will rewrite a textbook after a Pearl and mother voiced concerns on YouTube about the portrayal of slaves as immigrant workers in her son's school book. Like, when you see that, and then you recognize how the Daughters of Confederacy influenced textbooks in the South, and we recognize that the vast majority of people in the South, the vast majority of Americans in this country, don't understand how slavery impacted this country, don't even understand that slavery is a cause of the Civil War. Do you think that maybe that having some sort of instruction that does a better job at explaining the historic injustice, and the impact of race on laws, and on our history in this country, do you think that that would be helpful or harmful?
Um, I think it'd be helpful for schools to teach history in a correct manner. I believe that slavery was a defining part of the Civil War. And I believe that we should hold the history teachers responsible for teaching a accurate representation of what historically happened. Whether that be good or bad for the United States, I believe that it should be accurate nonetheless.
Okay. Do you think that we should be able to teach students beyond just the Civil War that how home ownership, when we're talking about things like social studies, right? Like this class that we've all been familiar with throughout our K through 12, when we want to talk about how social studies is directly impacted by race, for example, things like forced segregation, how that would still impact people today, right? Or redlining and how there has been no attenuance for that and how that would still impact people today. Do you think that that would be an important instruction when talking about American social studies?
Yes, I think that redlining should be taught in schools. I think that, like I said, I think the entire American history, what the good or bad for America, should be taught in American schools. I don't think, and again, I don't think that, um, I don't think we should make white white people in these schools feel bad as if they had something to do with this,
I haven't
as
said
far as
that.
I'm concerned. No, I know you haven't said that. I've heard that before. I'm making a preclusionary statement. I'm not saying that you said that. I'm just adding on to my answer, right? I don't think we should make white people
Okay.
feel bad to suggest that it's their fault this happened.
Okay. Do you think that CRT purports to try to make black white people feel bad? Do you think that that's like embedded in any of the tenets of critical race theory?
I mean, we haven't gotten to the fourth tenet. So
Go ahead and just speed read that real quick, and then you tell me.
all right, let's go to so I've got so many tabs open, it's not even funny. Um, where is it? ABA. Okay. There we go. Recognition and relevance of people that lose. So no, I don't think that I don't think the fourth tenet I do not think the fourth tenet tries to tries to pin blame on white people. No, I don't believe
Oh,
that. No.
okay. So you do agree that we should tell accurately, like how race has impacted the lives of certain individuals with regard to their culture, specifically within this country, especially when we're talking about U.S. history, U.S. civics, and U.S. social studies, that it would be really bad to talk about that without somehow considering the impact on race on these subjects. Correct?
No, I think you could definitely say this has impacted race to look at this in a certain way. I think you could definitely say that this has impacted race. This has put uh certain minorities in different positions. Like it's put black people into the socioeconomically low class by large majority because they were stuck in this area by redlining, which we can see today. It the continued effects of this. But I think I think that's how it should be phrased is the continued effects.
Sure.
Um,
So
but
then it
yeah.
sounds like you agree with critical race theory then, because that's what critical race theory tends to do.
Well, so
That's what it aims to do. Like if you notice, like it's not like lawyers are going around because this is where CRT has been like found for the most
mhm.
part. It's where it began anyway. It's not like lawyers are going around saying like all white people are evil or it's all white people's fault or anything along those lines. It's literally just supposed to be analyzing how race has impacted our laws just as race has impacted like we recognize that laws are not apolitical. We recognize that some laws have been racist. And I think for us to be able to analyze that, so then when we see outcomes that are disparate, we can analyze those to try to figure out if there's any causal links. That's the entire purpose and values of CRT. If we read through these, if we were to speed read through these tenets right now, that's literally what those tenets really communicate to any person with
Okay.
decent comprehension.
And the fact that me and you and the fact that me and you debated so long on this is the reason that I think that CRT should stay out of K through 12. Like I said, I think that history should be taught in a correct manner. But I think that the whole idea of teaching CRT should remain out of K through 12. Because CRT is a much more complicated. It requires prerequisites according to the University of Massachusetts. It requires the prerequisite of a graduate student in high ed. And so this collegiate level class requires
Collegiate.
prerequisite collegiate. I mean, you can get
But
after me for mispronouncing, but
it's
collegiate level
fine.
class.
No, but you know that like first off, like that's a specific class that they're doing that for. For example, like you can have like a specific college university that will say that before we'll teach you whatever class, we require you to take a prerequisite. But you
Hmm.
can understand that in another universe, I mean another university, they might not have that prerequisite. Like
Okay.
it's not like this isn't something that's embedded or something that we can yeah, this isn't something that's like necessary across the board. And furthermore, all of these
Okay.
things,
I
all of
I can read the description if
no,
if you think it sounds like that they're
I don't need you to read me the description of that individual university because I was making a general statement that it is not required. There is no prerequisite for learning critical race theory, for sure, as the creators of it have already pointed out, that it is going to be evolving, and that there are ways that we would probably normalize it for children, and we would change the application of it on our curriculum depending on the age, and make it age appropriate. You can talk about U.S. history, and you can talk about the founding of our country. It's probably not a good idea to be telling first graders about Christopher Columbus raping Native Americans. It's probably not in their interest. You can tell them that he's
Probably
the person
not.
that got there, right? But in the same way with critical race theory, simply when you start talking about the history of our country, and you're taught slavery is one of the largest impacting institutions of our country. So the idea that you feel like we should exclude that, if you don't feel like we should exclude slavery, then you agree that we should be analyzing how slavery has impacted our history in this country. And that's literally what critical race theory does. And I want to push back against the idea that we argued along this way for so long. And that's an indicator that we need to do this. The reason why we argued for so long was because, one, you literally beleaguered the conversation by fighting everything I did, and two, your comprehension is all but questionable, considering the fact. It's super questionable considering the fact that literally every time we've read things, you've not understood them. I just literally had you read two sentences, and then you had to stop to reread the sentences that I had you read out loud, just so that you could get an understanding.
I mean, is it okay for me to read something that I didn't read ahead of time to actually make sure I have a full understanding of what that sentence means, i.e., looking at it critically and reading it several times, which is what's required in critical reading, to have a full understanding of what's being said, to therefore make an opinion on it, which I'm going to be held to in a public level?
I
Is
think
that
it's
is that not understood?
You asked a
To add
question, but
on,
okay, but go ahead, keep going.
okay, I feel like that was pretty. I feel like that was a question that didn't really need an answer, saying that's understood that I should probably critically read what I'm going to have an opinion on.
Well, that wasn't the
Either
problem. The
way,
problem was that it was literally only two sentences. Number one, it was only two sentences. And I think it's not just that single incident. It's the fact that thus far, as we've been reading, you've had a hard time responding to direct questions. You've had a hard time directly interacting with the statements that are made in the key tenets. And now, and later on in that other excerpt, you had a hard time understanding that, such that you needed to reread it after I had you read it out loud. I thought maybe I'm reading too fast, or reading what I didn't know what the problem was, and now I recognize it's probably just a problem of comprehension.
seriously, if you're gonna keep coming after my comprehension, I'll tell Prime I want the debate to be ended, because I'm not gonna sit here and just be a punching bag for you, Fanatic. I love how much your chat loves me being a punching bag for you. But if you're seriously gonna come after my reading ability, my comprehension ability, I feel like that's a low blow that I thought you were above. That's why I accepted a debate with you, because I thought you were above low blows. Evidently, you've shown me today that you aren't. And it really shows on you, Mr. Fanatic. But to move further into this, this started off as a collegiate course, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, collegiate course. That is what this is. You in schools, they're talking about teaching CRT, right? They're not talking about teaching history. They're not talking about teaching civics. They're not talking about teaching economics. Those things are already taught. They're talking about teaching CRT. And when you teach CRT, you would teach the theory. The description of this course, which requires a graduate student in high ed, is the course is designed to provide students with an opportunity to understand critical race theory and its application to the field of higher education. In doing so, students will explore how race intersects with ethnicity, class, gender, sexual orientation, citizenship to shape the experiences of. Specifically, students in this course will understand and critically analyze the primary tenets of critical race theory and apply the tenets of critical race theory as conceptual lenses to critically think about policy and practice. So when you actually take a look at this, right? This is what CRT is. They basically described what they would go over, and that's basically the entirety of CRT. And they require a prerequisite of a graduate student in high ed. Any high schooler, any average high schooler would not have this prerequisite. Any average high schooler would not have the amount of knowledge needed to actually go into this and actually critically think about the critical race theory. Because if you actually take a look at legal theories that are all supposed to be criticized, you're supposed to criticize theories. That's what you're supposed to do. Even in a scientific community, you're supposed to criticize a theory. And so the idea that this is beyond criticism is a little bit just not true. Because even legal theories suggest that you should criticize legal theories. So I mean, it's just not true to say that you shouldn't criticize legal theories. But I'm not. I don't know why you feel like that you have to take low blows and interrupt and decide that you're not going to let me finish my points. To think that you won this debate and to put yourself above me, it just seems a little bit disingenuous. And to go further into it, to attack my comprehension skills and my reading skills, to say that I'm not comprehensionally able to debate this topic because I had to reread a sentence a couple times to make sure that my thoughts were correct and true, and that I had to critically read it and think about which part of the sentence meant what, means that I have a comprehension problem.
Yeah, let's not attack. I think it's fair. Let's
Yeah,
not attack
it is
anyone's
fair.
comprehension's ability.
It is
Oh yeah.
fair, but I'll
Okay.
tell you what, it's fair, and I think at this point, I feel how I feel. My experience has been my experience, and I think consequently, I think this conversation is untenable because I feel like the things that I'm expressing are not being addressed, or in like in the last case when I mentioned that we would obviously be teaching it at a different level when we're talking about elementary kids, right? Like we have like we start learning algebra in like the fifth grade. Now, fifth grade algebra and then like algebra at like the college level, they're going to teach you in a different way, same thing happens with calculus, or same thing if you want to start talking about U.S. history. The expectations of U.S. history in a third grader and the expectations of U.S. history in a college course are different. I expressed this already to him, and he was unwilling, or at least maybe he didn't hear it. Maybe it's not a matter of comprehension. Maybe he wasn't listening. Maybe he was distracted. I don't know what the freak the problem is. But there is a problem. And the problem is that when I'm saying things, I'm expecting the conversation to update such that we should be able to get engaged in an actual back and forth where we're taking into consideration the previous things said by the other party. But in this case, it feels like it's constantly been just that thing being dismissed. So you can go ahead and say your last words. And then at this point, I think this is a good time to end the conversation.
I agree. I'm not going to sit here and be a punching bag for another streamer.
Escape